In this episode of the Stamina Lab podcast, I spoke with JJ Ruescas. JJ is a human optimization strategist, which includes being an expert breathwork coach. I've attended many of his live breathwork sessions here in Austin, and they are a transformative reset from the stress and emotional buildup that cumulatively drags us down in all parts of our life. I walk away from these sessions with a level of feeling alive that I can't believe comes from just breathing for 90 minutes. Even though you breathe every day, you probably don't know how to breathe optimally for different phases of your day. How do you breathe to prepare for a big presentation? To focus and drop into a flow state? To have more energy? To physically perform at your best? To wind down and get ready for sleep? Or even to have better sex? We discuss all that and more. If you really want to perform at your best, then learning how to breathe is a key skill. JJ breaks it down for you in this episode. I know you'll get a lot out of this conversation, so let's get started. All right, JJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm so happy to be here with you. I cannot believe that we're here, actually.
Yes, we've been talking about doing this for a while. This is great. So I wanted to start just by jumping into breathwork, because I know so much of what you're doing is breathwork, and in your overall optimization program. And the question I really wanted to talk about is why breathwork? Why do you think it's so important?
You know, it was like maybe 5 years ago. I was here in downtown Austin in Zilker Park, and I remember I grabbed my phone and I said, hey, I'm going to put a webinar on optimal breathing, and I posted it on social media. And it was Facebook, so no one, I think my mom liked it and my sister, that's it. But there was this guy who commented saying, look, this jackass wants us to learn how to breathe. And I'm like, okay, he has a good point, I'm a jackass. But the second thing was, how come do we think that by simply breathing that we know actually how to breathe? Interesting thing, right? So how come, what happens with breathwork is that not because we're breathing, that means that we know how, when, and how much to breathe depending on the situation. If we have just one flavor of breathing throughout the 24 hours of our day, then that's mono breathing, let's say, right?
Mono breathing, I like that.
Mono breathing, right?
And most of us are mono breathing.
Exactly. And probably we're mono breathing at the least optimal way of breathing, which is for the majority of the people, it is shallow breathing to the upper part of the chest and also mouth, right? And it's interesting because we forget that our mind, our body, and our emotions are so interconnected that by changing the physiology, we affect or change the other two elements. And in this case, we're changing or affecting in a negative way. I'm not saying that breathing this way is bad. No. I'm saying there are moments when we need to breathe like this. For example, when we are working out and you need to do this. Exactly. But overdoing it all the time, it's actually the opposite, right? So having a plethora of breathing tools in your toolkit so that you can use them depending on the situation, for me, that is a way of experience life in multicolor ways.
I love it. And then, so another case, flavors of breathing. Flavors of breathing. So, let's talk about some of those flavors. Like, what particularly do you recommend for people to have as what's the regular day-to-day breathings to be like? Obviously through the nose versus the mouth is a big one, and that's a lot of people have to be retrained around that.
So one of the things, there are a few elements to understand, principles to understand, so that we can, on top of that, say what are the most appropriate, so to speak, flavors during the day. So like you mentioned, the first distinction is mouth breathing and nose breathing. Many people, because they have the stuffy nose constantly and they're like frustrated, they default to mouth breathing. But the problem with mouth breathing is that noses are designed for breathing, mouths are designed for eating. So we don't have the features in the mouth that we have in the nasal cavity. Basically filtering and other features that the mouth doesn't have. And also look at the volume, right? The volume of air that we inhale through the nose and the mouth are very different. And also one of the factors that I was talking about was the volume of air that we're inhaling and exhaling. It's interesting because too much air, it's equally unhealthy at some point. Too much oxygen can also produce negative effects. It's not that too much oxygen, it can also affect the nervous system. So in this case, one of the main things is first nose breathing, using the nose because it's designed for it has around 32 features or functions that the mouth doesn't have. One of them is, and that's going to take me to the next principle, is diaphragmatic breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing, improperly called belly breathing, right? Mm-hmm. We call it belly breathing, but it's actually the lower part of the lungs, and the way that our nose is connected to the muscles of the diaphragm is unique, and it's not like the way that our mouth is not connected to the muscles of the diaphragm in the way that breathing through the nose affects the diaphragm and therefore the lower end of the lungs, where we have a lot of sensors, a lot of receptors for oxygen. And if we're not using that lower end of our lungs, then we're not optimally using the machinery. Mm-hmm. So, nose breathing, therefore diaphragmatic or belly or lower lungs breathing. And the other one is slow breathing. So what does slow mean? Is it slow 10 seconds? Yeah, I can do 10 seconds of like just trying to get as much oxygen as I can in 10 seconds or 5 seconds. Well, people like James Nestor from Breath, the book, or Oxygen Advantage, Patrick McKeown, and the research that they have been performing, they realize that an appropriate inhale and exhale ratio is around 5, let's put it between 5 to 6 seconds for inhale and 5 to 6 seconds for exhale, meaning 10 seconds. Just to simplify things, it's 10 seconds for a full breath, meaning 6 breaths per minute. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, this is an interesting thing, Glenn. By the way, is that okay? I think I'm speaking too much.
No, this is great. No, this is fantastic, and it's really interesting, and I like this basics of how to breathe, because like as you said before, just because we breathe doesn't mean we know how to breathe. And this basic primer is really useful, I think, for building on additional types of breath work for different situations.
Nice. So now let's talk about this other element that was the timing. So the World Health Organization nowadays consider that an average, or the air quote normal respiratory rate, meaning how many breaths you take per minute, is around 15 to 20. That is the average, the normal one for a normal adult. There's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, versus the 6.
Exactly. Anything above 12 means it's a biomarker that your body's under stress. So my
stress and inflammation comes into play, which then because all cause mortality.
Exactly. So my guess is, my theory is, are we normalizing suboptimal states, suboptimal breathing in this case? If 6 is the optimal, 12 is already double it, right?
Right.
So.
And then the World Health Organization says 20.
Exactly. So are we normalizing stress as a collective in the planet? Maybe.
Yeah.
Right? So we're downgrading so slightly, and then it's like, okay, the new normal is suboptimal. Could be. It's just a theory. So answering your question, I like this acronym by Patrick McKeown. He calls it LSD breathing. LSD breathing is studied for low, slow, and deep. Low lungs, slow, 6 breaths per minute, or 6 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale, or 5, or around that ratio. And deep, like I mentioned, using our nose helps to go deeper. And LSD breath, or nose LSD breath, and if you like LSD breath, you may like to get relaxed.
Right. And so if you notice you're breathing these 12 seconds or even 20 seconds, what do you do?
The interesting part, Glenn, is that as soon as you notice that one, you're bringing awareness. Exactly. And then boom, it comes down.
Wow.
As soon as you notice, because this happens so many times when I'm in a breathwork session and I'm starting the introduction, and I will say, okay, so Carly, did you notice today your breath? And as soon as I say this, obviously she didn't do it until that moment. I said like, and then you can see how she starts breathing deeply, like, oh yes, and she comes into the story. But that awareness brings relaxation, slows down the system. Now, what if we would just start by becoming aware of our breath maybe twice a day? How long does it take to become aware? As soon as I mention it, you become
immediately,
aware.
Yeah. So that alone, just starting with that basic habit of just being aware of your breath, is going to lower your stress levels, basically.
Exactly. And for example, now at this moment, right now, how I breathe is a little bit tense because I'm excited about this conversation.
Right.
But the more that I notice this one, the deeper that I can breathe, more expanded I can feel even the rib cage. So immediately it starts changing.
And calm down from stress or anxiety, just by noticing your breath.
Yeah,
that's powerful. And that's it. So that's the answer to my question. Why are you doing breath work? Because just that alone can have a massive impact on someone's life.
Right. And now let me add that one as well, because the majority of the people, they consider breath work, they associate breath work with pranayama if they have some kind of background with yoga. So pranayama are millenary techniques. They have been there for thousands of years, and they are mostly about relaxation.
What kind of technique?
Pranayama.
Pranayama
Techniques. So prana means life force, yama techniques. So it's breathing techniques, and mostly the mental picture that we have when we are thinking about yoga or pranayama is this alternate nostril, doing like just relaxing. But that is one side of breath work. The other side, and coming back to this idea of mouth breathing, shallow breathing, and fast breathing, is equally part of breath work, and we need it as well. Think about this. When someone is feeling sleepy, what's the first thing that they do here, at least in the US? Coffee. Boom, and stimulant. Or any other type of stimulant, Red Bulls, you name it, right? And that is because they want to feel alert. They may need it for work. They may need it for something.
Which can be a useful tool. Caffeine can be
Exactly. Still, I'm not saying that is wrong or right, but I'm saying we are always trying to change states, and because of that, we use different techniques. In this case, a tool or a substance called caffeine helps us to get stimulated. Now think about this other one. When we hyper breathe, meaning shallow, fast breaths, that is also stimulating the nervous system, which is equally another tool.
Right.
Like I mentioned, it's not that it's wrong or right or this one or the other one are better.
Just another tool in the toolbox.
Knowing, and what flavor to use during what situation.
Right. So the nose breathing, as you said, is our primary goal, and to slow down our breathing and deep the diaphragm, the LSD.
Yeah.
That's a great way to remember it.
You're going to remember it.
Yeah, totally. And that you said that was in Patrick McEwen's book.
Patrick McEwen,
The Oxygen Advantage. Yeah, and the great book is Breath by James Nestor.
Yeah. And the LSD was actually Patrick McEwen started first the Oxygen Advantage. He wrote several books, but the LSD per se is now part of the Breathing Cure. He's one of his most recent books, so that's when he made it popular.
Got it. Okay.
And the Breathing Cure is for many considered now the Bible nowadays of respiration.
Oh, okay.
It's a fantastic book.
Excellent. I read Breath, but not Patrick McEwen's book. So the Breathing Cure.
The Breathing Cure.
Definitely want to check that out. So mouth breathing does have a use case. When do you employ mouth breathing?
Now, this is when things get interesting because even though I evangelize nose breathing, when you come to my breathwork class, what happens?
we do
mouth breathing. Right. So why do I go into mouth breathing there? First, because I have just a limited time. We could get to the state that I would like to get people's the nervous system of the group through nose breathing, but that's going to take a little bit longer, and I need to be effective.
Right.
Right. So that is when I encourage people to mouth breathe during the session, because by doing so, we are now applying a completely different set of techniques from pranayamas. We're applying now the Wim Hof methods, we're applying the holotropics, we're applying rebirthing, etc. And by inhaling and exhaling way more volume that we're normally habituated to do, then our nervous system starts getting into, whoa, what's happening? So basically, Glenn, I am crafting or manufacturing stress for the nervous system of the group. But this is not distress. This is eustress, the type of stress that actually is a positive stress, and which creates a reset of the nervous system.
So you just doing something, what you said, distress?
Distress is the negative stress, eustress, positive stress.
Got it.
How do we know which one? Well, that's in the eye of the beholder. But in this case, physiologically, it's how I'm using it in my breathwork sessions is basically to hack a person's nervous system for good. What do I mean by that? And let's go in a little bit into nervous system, and you and I know about this thing, but it is, we're loading stress constantly, day to day, day by day, right? And if we're not deloading or discharging that stress, guess what? It's like stacking dirt under your carpet, and at some point your carpet's like this way, and you cannot store anything. Or using the analogy or the metaphor of the closet, you start putting stuff inside of your closet. At some point, you can open it and
Everything's gonna fall out. Yeah.
That's called reactivity, right? When someone is lashing out, when someone closes off, collapses, or disconnects immediately with a trigger, even the slightest trigger causes that kind of reaction. We know that it's a highly sensitive nervous system that has not discharged the stress. So going back to the breathwork session, by creating this eustressful situation or hormetic strategy of breathwork or breathing, what we're doing is discharging the accumulated stress, and therefore at the end of the session the person feels
much better.
way better.
And that's it's almost counterintuitive that we're going to stress the body, but to de-stress it. And then it's similar to exercise. When you go out and you're doing you're stressing the body, but then you feel great after.
Exactly, which is hormesis, hormetic strategies, applying a consolidated, or I would say a dose of stress that is not the one that's going to break you, but it's the one that's going to make you grow.
Right. And you said it's in the IBA holder, because is it a mindset that you're bringing to it? Like when you're exercising, you're like wanting to feel good. If you're doing this kind of breathwork session, you're going there with the intention that this trust in you that it's going to stress myself out, but for a good piece, or is it the amount of stress?
In this case, I was referring more to the difference between distress and eustress. For example, distress for a person could be, I can give you this example. For many people, public speaking, distress.
Right.
No, I'm out of here. In my case, even though I feel anxious and I feel at the beginning jittery about this, man, eustress for me, because one immune state of flow, I'm not myself. I lose track of I'm in full flow.
Right.
Right. So for me, that's a stress, and that's in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
If you ask me to do other things, you may love them, eustress. For me, distress.
Right. And because what we talk about with our mindset work is around having a stress is enhancing mindset instead of a stress is debilitating mindset. And that just even being aware of your breath, you calm your breath, just being able to be aware that those are two different mindsets. You can shift between them. Is helpful for making more of a stress as you stress. A stressful environment. And just because this is a mindset shift. So that's interesting as we bring it back to the breath work too. Because
it's a breath workout.
Yeah.
Literally, this one, my sessions are this kind of order.
Breath workout.
Breath workout. What happens at the end of the session And over the days after that is that some people may feel sore in their diaphragm because we're really exercising the muscle of the diaphragm, which does not get exercised through cardio, through lifting weights. No, the respiratory system does not get exercised.
Because we're doing more mouth breathing in those situations, so we're not getting the diaphragm.
Because we're not engaging the diaphragm.
Right. And then the engagement only comes from breathing through the nose.
It could also come from breathing through the mouth, but when we're doing consciously, in this case, in the breathwork session, what I do is like take a deep inhale, and I get them to put their hands on their belly so that they know when they are inflating the core, and that deflation, that deflating as well. It is the in and out of the diaphragm,
right,
which doesn't really happen in
unconscious exercise. But you could theoretically apply that to if you took a really mindful approach to your breath work during exercise, then you could, which is what you do in some of yoga pieces when it's that type of, when you get to that level, I think of yoga, because I think when you're first starting yoga, it's like, all right, can I just understand the moves that are happening in there, and not putting the breath towards it. At least that was my case in starting yoga.
In yoga, think about it. It's more controlled breathing. It's not too much focused on the diaphragm, let's say, but it's like Ujjayi breath, like Darth Vader breath, right? But it's more controlled here. But you're not really
more controlling your
here
throat versus your diaphragm.
Now, something that, for example, and you're very right, once you start becoming conscious of your breath in those scenarios, you can take it to anywhere else. One of the examples that I can give you, when I'm working out, I'm wearing the polar strap, right?
Yeah,
the
heart
chest
rate
strap, the heart rate monitor. So when I'm seeing in real time my heartbeat, and I finished a set of burpees or whatever, it's to the top.
Right.
Guess what? LSD, relax, and you can see how it starts dropping. And that changes completely the way that you work out, because instead of following a recipe by someone who says you need to rest for 3 minutes and doing this, it's because it worked for them. But for you, once you start realizing how you can down-regulate your heartbeat, boom, you go back.
Yeah, I mean, that's really useful if you're doing HIIT type workouts, or where you're trying to get your heart rate up fast and then recover quickly to get back into the next set, the next rep, and that's really, I think, where the power of it comes into play. That's where I think it was the most useful in the exercise. Yes, you can use it as you're doing the whole workout, but it's really, I think it's the most powerful and useful when you need to get your heart rate up, back down, and then get back up. Again.
Vice versa, exactly.
Yeah, and using, for me when I'm competing for running, I think that's another superpower tool to be able to use in the training portion of it, is to be able to really get that effective. And I find that it's a form of recovery, basically. It's a form
of recovery, and also a form of stimulation. Like you said, for example, I was months ago when we were training for what's it we did? Spartan race. Spartan race. I was supposed to get my heartbeat until a higher level, but I was not able to make it when I was on the bicycle, on the stationary bicycle, and then I started playing with my breath. And guess what? I figured out that if I time my exhales with the pace of cycling, I was able to get it to that point. That was fascinating.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So let's talk about carbon dioxide, because that, obviously we're always very worried about carbon dioxide because we can't breathe with carbon dioxide, but we absolutely need carbon dioxide to breathe. And so I'm really interested in this, in sharing this knowledge about how to use carbon dioxide effectively, and what can be used to help with your performance.
Jacko Jackson, another breathwork facilitator, he says carbon dioxide is good.
With the exhale.
It's good. Yeah. And I like it because we have vilified as a society carbon dioxide, thinking that it's a byproduct or like right from our system. Nevertheless, over the last few years, we have realized that actually It's, I would say it's the yang of the yin. If yin is oxygen, the yang is carbon dioxide.
Which means you need both of them
You
to
need both of them.
stay balanced.
Both of them. So carbon dioxide, when we, we have two sensors in our brain, in the lower base of our brain. They're called chemoreceptors. So the first one is oxygen, how much oxygen we have in the tank, and the other one is how much carbon dioxide we have in the tank. These two sensors. So clearly, right, if we don't have enough oxygen, these sensors are going to say, take a deep inhale. So we inhale. But what we have discovered over the last 25 years or so is that the carbon dioxide sensor is more sensitive than the other one. Meaning, if our oxygen tank is still at a good rate, but the carbon dioxide tank seems to be filling faster inside of the body, the sensor is going to say, we need to breathe to exhale this much carbon dioxide that we have built up. And because of that, we inhale more air, even though we have already oxygen. That's suboptimal. If you think from a point of perspective of a factory, that is suboptimal operation of a machinery. Right. So carbon dioxide, actually what it does is that it acts as a vasodilator. If you have not good circulation, your veins are getting constricted, your arteries are getting constricted, right? Especially people in high altitude, something like that happens. My grandpa used to have that thing of high blood pressure. So in this case, what it happens is that by allowing the body to hold on a little bit longer, the carbon dioxide, without freaking out, without the sensor to asking for more air, it opens up the veins. It helps to open up the veins, and therefore better circulation happens. Better circulation, it's like you start removing more and more things distributing throughout the body. So if we have a low sensitivity to carbon dioxide, the tendency is to overbreathe, regardless if it's mouth or nose, whatever. We're going to inhale more air than what we actually need. And the goal of many training programs, like for example XPT Live or Oxygen Advantage or Jocko Willing's Pro Breathwork, it is to help us desensitize this sensor of carbon dioxide, so that we can endure a little bit more without the need of oxygen. Therefore, that works very well for any kind of endeavor when you're fully stressed or even when you're working out.
Right. Yeah, that's what I found interesting when doing that is that when you first start exhaling all your oxygen out and then just sitting with the carbon dioxide, at first that sensor is so sensitive. You're like, I'm freaking out. I need air immediately, which you don't. But and that's when you get trained and practice it more, you're able to stay in that state longer. But that sensor is so sensitive that if I'm drowning, you get that feeling.
Exactly. Even though you're not.
Yeah.
But your nervous system thinks that is happening. Now, going back to the breathwork sessions that I lead, what I do is basically we are hyperoxygenating a person, hypoxygenation, and then hypercapnic. We're reducing the carbon dioxide. Now the key is this: I sometimes get people to hold their breath after exhale for between 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Whereas people will freak out, but they don't realize that their nervous system is so relaxed. Their carbon dioxide, we're hacking their CO2 sensor so that they can even go longer, and they're still chill there. And some people after the session, they will tell me, man, if you would not have asked us to take an inhale, I could even have gone longer.
Oh, that's fascinating. So the benefits of doing that are obviously improve circulation, as you said. Why do we want to have more train ourselves to have the capacity to have more carbon dioxide in our body?
First of all, because of the the endurance of the vasoconstriction. We're opening our veins for circulation. But at the same time,
And then when you open up that vein for circulation, that's really where you're almost having, as you talk about, where you have multicolor, technicolor living, is because you're just flowing blood through your body, so you feel more.
Exactly, you have more interoception. At some point, it's like you can feel more of this, and this is fantastic.
So that alone just have more vivid life.
Exactly, and that vasodilation happens in the brain as well. If your brain is having more of a blood flow, you can think clearer.
Yeah. So better thoughts, more ideas.
Exactly.
Less depression.
And at some point, if we take it to from the emotional angle, from emotions itself, I brought this the other day in one of my workshops, which was breathing is the lubricant for emotions. If you hold your breath, that means that you're constricting your body. Therefore, your emotions, literally, the hormones that are being created in your body cannot flow through it, right? Because you're like that. So going back to breathe again and allowing yourself to not have that much the need of breath or a new breath, and being able to build up that carbon dioxide there, man, that's the ultimate stressor. Carbon dioxide is the ultimate stressor. If we know how to master it, how to be chill in the face of the ultimate stressor, which is lack of oxygen or buildup of carbon dioxide, you can endure anything.
So it's also about endurance, about handling stress more naturally. Obviously, and then life being more vivid. That all sounds pretty amazing. And I mean, this is my question I asked at the beginning is like, why breathwork? And this continues to be more fascinating as we talk about this.
What I can say is, adding to what you said, it is why breathwork, why breathing. I know that if there is no breathing, all your problems are going to be solved like this.
Right.
If you stop breathing, all your problems are going like this. But if you breathe and you have this diversity or this plethora of breathing tools, man, you can enjoy so many things. We're talking about how to increase and, for example, decrease the heartbeat by slow, deep breaths, how to increase it by rapid breaths. Think about even when you're having sex.
Yeah.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you want to modulate that not only within your system, but with your partner's system.
Yeah, the co-regulation.
Co-regulation.
Yeah.
It's co-regulation at its...
I think that's one of the most powerful tools that has stuck with me about doing it. Okay, yes, you have it for your own benefit, but being able to, if someone's in distress, even just being able to calm your nervous system down, without just being in the presence of that other person does it. But even especially like you said in sex or someone you love, doing that giving a hug.
Exactly.
I don't have to do anything, just give you a hug, and I've helped you tremendously. That's really a powerful tool, and I think one it's been fun to play with.
And I can tell you, just between you and I, don't tell anyone. One of the most powerful tools that I use to create rapport with another person, meaning rapport, physiological rapport, it is when I, for example, I'm in conversation with a person, I notice that their breathing is hectic. I will first go into that breathing, and then I start changing my breathing pattern, and they change their breathing pattern.
Because you put yourself in sync, even though it's not optimal breathing.
Exactly.
And by putting themselves in sync, they've noticed, their nervous system has noticed that's a pretty powerful tool. I won't tell anybody. And that same co-regulation though is interesting because that's where you get it from pets too as well. Your dog, and it's a key. Dogs are great for lots of human benefits, but being able to calm your nervous system is a fantastic way to have a good relationship with your dog. And also people are they're in conflict with each other, especially your loved ones. Just giving that hug, boom.
Yeah.
Everything comes out better after that hug.
It's something that I didn't know that I was doing since I was a teenager. For example, if I was cuddling with a partner, I used to match the breathing pattern. And it's easier, like you said, when you're hugging someone or cuddling someone, it's easier to notice and to co-regulate first on your end, which helps both of them feel so connected. Oh, even that little hug, like...
How does humming come into play with your helping your nervous system and your breath?
Yeah, this is fantastic because um, humming, and I don't remember if you've been to any of my sessions when I applied humming. I don't remember
Yeah.
that. But what it happens is that by humming, and I'm not saying the humming that is just vocal, it's more nasal way. So if we inhale a and we can feel the vibration of the teeth and
Yeah.
the throat, the back end of the mouth and the beginning of the throat up here. What that is doing is creating nitric oxide. It's helping to produce nitric oxide in the back cavity of the nose. Like I mentioned, the mouth doesn't have that feature, but the nose has that feature in the back part. By creating that in mixes or it combines with oxygen, with carbon dioxide, and that nitric oxide, another vasodilator. And this is something that I use with people, especially if I have males in my class, which did not come to the class because they wanted, but because they were dragged by their wives or significant others, right? Like, why am I doing this? So I notice when someone is like this, like, oh, what the hell is this going to be? And I say, what it happens is the nitric oxide in the back of our nose creates also vasodilator. And then I ask, what do you think is one of the most well-known drugs to help males with enhanced sex? And immediately get their attention. Viagra. What is it made out of? Mostly nitric oxide.
Yeah.
Therefore, humming is another way to naturally create nitric oxide within in our body, but at the same time, the vibration, the reverberation of this in the throat, it's giving you a massage and like, even if you can have monotone or you can go all in like, and that starts creating all sorts of vibration inside of your throat. Right now, if you want to take it to the next level,
Always.
when we're in one of my breathwork sessions, let's say I already got your nervous system out of whack. Okay,
Yeah,
it's like
we
feeling
de-stressed.
it. It's like, whoa,
Now
it's
what?
feeling it. And then I incorporate breathing or humming, sorry, and then plus the audio effects and everything's like, whoa. Yeah, for some people, they will come after the session and they will say, that humming took me to the next level.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and you can play around and experiment with the humming. What works, what is fun for you, what you feel comfortable with. But that humming and humming and co-regulation. Can you put those two together a bit too as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Humming and co-regulation is even the idea of singing of chorus that we play. This idea is still co-regulating with another person in sync, right? And before I forget, I got this thing that it also may help, and this is just a theory, with the strength of the muscles of the lower part of the back part of the throat. What it happens is that many people, when they're sleeping, their muscles collapse, and that is because they don't have enough strength in those muscles. A way to strengthen those muscles, and this one comes from a book called You Can Sleep Well by Dr. Chris Itzikowski. He says, if you sing or you hum, you're strengthening those muscles. Therefore, when you are in atonia at night sleeping, they have less of a tendency to fully collapse and create sleep obstruction.
That's fantastic, and it's a good segue for talking about sleep, because lots of people, this one of the biggest struggles they have is sleep apnea, which is a function of the strength of their neck muscles, the area, and so that causes all kinds of sleep disturbance. You're basically suffocating yourself multiple times a night, and so it's a really big challenge for a lot of people. So the humming in this breathwork exercise is helping build that.
Yeah, you don't need to become a singer, but by doing humming,
Right. It takes no talent.
Yeah, it takes no talent. And the first thing that by the way, and two things that I need to mention before we get into that segue is that also the social conditioning plays such a huge role, Glenn. I have people, especially here in the US, that when I ask for belly breathing during the session, they're like, in their minds, like, no, belly breathing equals fat, and I'm not fat. And they reject the idea of belly breathing because of societal constructs.
Because your belly gets big when you
Exactly.
Oh,
And
interesting.
that's a meaning for them in their model of the world of being fat.
Interesting.
So in many situations, what I did, instead of asking people to raise their bellies, I asked them to put their hands on their sides of the core by inhaling and focusing on those ones. By default, they are also doing this, but the
Takes away from
psychological
that.
part, yeah,
Yeah.
that is one thing. And the other one is humming. Humming is less of a problem because I tell them I'm not a teacher. A teacher.
Music teacher,
Music teacher, so you're not gonna get bad grades here. Become messy, please. Be messy with this practice and play with that. Obviously, at the beginning of the session, they're still self-conscious. When they're in the middle of the session, they're not, so they can be more playful. Then.
Cool, because the feedback loop is so fantastic. You start to feel better. You're like, okay, I want to continue to do this, and then it becomes less of a stricter thing. And we talk about it with your partner, and then like, you're like, are you humming? I'm like, yep, I'm humming. And but now that I know so much about the science behind it, I'm like, yeah, here's what's happening. And like, oh, okay, I'm down with it then. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So we were talking so much about the breath work and the different states of it because we're trying to change the state of our nervous system, and that's really, as we talk about sleep, that's really what we're trying to do when we're trying to create the conditions for going to sleep, is to downregulate that nervous system from the day. And I know you've we recorded a great breath work for us at Stamina Lab on this, but let's talk a bit about how to use breath work to wind down in the evening. And obviously, there's lots of different ways to set your environment and the lighting and everything, but your breath work is really key to effectively downregulate in the evening, or if you even wake up in the middle of the night, how to use the breath work.
So we need to remember that breathing is what influences the nervous system the most internally. Therefore, if we are over-breathing, we're overstimulating the nervous system. If we are down-regulating our breath, then that down-regulates our nervous system. So a way to strategize optimal sleep, and you and I were talking about this, is start creating or incorporating in our sleep rituals breathing techniques that they don't need to last for hours. We're not asking to just sit down and meditate for hours before you go to bed. No. But for example, signaling the nervous system when it's going to be time for bed. And now I can bring so many tools and I can provide them, but at the end of the day, every person needs to pick what works for them. So for example, standard one, 9 p.m. when I know that around 10 I'm going to go to bed, at 9 p.m. I'm going to do 2 minutes or 3 minutes of box breathing. So we're signaling the body, hey, watch out, bed is coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like training our dog. Oh, the nervous system, like, I get it.
Right. And I mean, really, when we get down to doing behavioral change or behavioral science, and it's a lot of the same principles apply that if you were doing. So it's all just signaling that this is going to happen. So so that signal you're using is box breathing. So
I was throwing box breathing, but it can be something like I call a combination of protocols. Let's say box breathing first, because the act of controlling the inhale, let's say for 4 seconds, inhale, then hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4 requires your awareness, demands awareness. Good start, right? That's going to get you focused there. And then switching, for example, to 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Or if you want to go, if you have if you are taller, 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. Or if you're shorter and you need, for example, 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Just double the amount of exhale than the inhale. And that one, what it's doing, it is influence or activating more of parasympathetic, more the rest and digest. And one way to notice if this is working or not is by focusing on the buildup of saliva.
Interesting.
In 2-3 minutes, almost 4, you're gonna feel the buildup. I was like, okay, because your body's like starting to get into that mode.
Right. So, that's interesting. And even at the basics, like we talked about at the beginning, it's just bringing your awareness to your breath already slows your breathing down, which already is activating that rest and digest part of your nervous system. But doing the box breathing, which is 4 in, 4 hold, 4 exhale, 4 inhale. But when you're exhaling longer, that's obviously you're playing with carbon dioxide again.
Yes, you are signaling your body that the buildup is good, and even you can like I mentioned, I'm bringing 4 and 8 right now, but if you want to go play with this, go 4-12, go 4-10, and play with the breath. Like when we were kids, don't tell me that you have never played to just stop breathing and see what happens.
Right.
We have all played. Let's go back to play there and see what happens.
Or the playing is like how long can I stay underwater?
Exactly.
That's also fun.
No, by the way, breathwork, don't do it in the water by yourself.
Perfect. Yeah.
just clarification.
Right.
But we have all played as kids with our breath. Why not playing as adults with our breath again?
So breathwork is a key piece of your human optimization frameworks, and we don't have time to go into detail right now, but I would like for you to just highlight what that framework is, and because all these components work together to be able to have that you're being human optimized. Yeah, and so what are the components of your framework?
Uh-huh. So the framework, I call it the Human Ops Framework, which stands for Human Optimal Performance Systems.
OPS is optimal.
OPS.
Yeah.
OPS, exactly. Human Ops,
Yeah.
right? And it's because I do consider that we are made out of systems and subsystems within them and ad infinitum in a fractal way, right? And we're also part of bigger systems.
Right.
And so by taking this approach of this human ops framework, what I did is I combined, or I added the elements that made us human. Respiration, movement, nutrition, the mental or psychological aspect, the recovery part of the nervous system, those are the main elements. And the emotional aspect, by the way, because something that I'm always describing it is, this is the hardware, the mind is the software, and the emotions are the fuel. Right? And actually, I'm putting on the newsletter an image that I found around those lines. I have to show you that image.
That's interesting. That emotions as a fuel. And actually, BJ Fogg, who is the creator of the Tiny Habits methodology, which I'm a certified coach in there, and we apply a lot of the methodologies of that in our Stamina Lab programs around sleep and other performance pieces, is the notion that you can't create habits or behaviors by brute force or by repeating them for X amount of time. It's about his line is emotions create habits. So I like that as it connects with that as a fuel.
And one of the things that I also use along the lines of habits, it is the more you can emotionalize an attitude, something that you can emotionalize, the stickier is going to become.
Right.
And now emotionalizing that doesn't mean crying or just no. Emotionalizing, it also involves, or if right now I'm looking at you, but I'm becoming so aware of the light and of the temperature of the room and the smells and everything, I'm gathering or I'm recruiting more sensory input from the outside that starts creating more of a sense of presence within me. So if I want to create a habit of becoming super present with you every time that I talk to you, Glen, then I can use all of those elements which are creating more emotions. I'm like, I feel good. And like you said, positive feedback loop, I'm going to do it over and over again.
Right.
Which same thing happens with breathing as well, right?
Yeah. That's fantastic. And the reason I really like this framework is because it is very similar to the framework that we have for performance at Stamina Lab, and just some different labels, but it basically gets down to the same key pieces. So if you could give one piece of advice for a person starting out on in their human optimization pathway, obviously we dealt with a lot of breath work, and I know you do a lot of that. Is that something that you would say would be the start of their journey, or how would you recommend they start their journey?
I recommend always baselining. What does baselining mean? It depends on. Human optimization is a precision strategy. What do I mean? If I'm an athlete, I work with startup founders. Many of them are athletes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't consider themselves athletes, but I have the guy that is climbing Kilimanjaro, like nothing other. He goes back to his board meeting or stuff
Right.
like that, right?
Well, I mean, because when you're in your startup, you are competing at the most highest level
Exactly.
of business.
They become mental athletes. That's
Yeah.
what I call mental athletes. But the point is that baselining is key in understanding, in first taking any step towards your personal optimization. So if you are someone who is struggling with the physical part, okay, or let's say that you're in version 1 in the hardware, and that you're very, very smart, things are working, maybe you don't need to start here. Maybe you need to start, what about the emotional aspect? What are the things that you know that you are hiding from yourself, or that you're suppressing? Or what are your coping mechanisms? That's a good way to notice if there's something on the emotional aspect. So baselining is the first thing. And many times, for example, I work with leaders who they want to improve their hardware. They want to improve the physiological aspect. So the first thing that we will do is, okay, a BOLT score. The BOLT score is one of the main metrics of carbon dioxide, by the way. The BOLT score, I can provide more information about that. Then a DEXA scan. What's a DEXA scan? It is knowing what's the composition of lean muscle, fat tissue, bone in your body, way more detailed than just going into scale and then how much do I weigh today?
Right.
Right, stuff like that. Or psychologically, what are your modus operandi? How is the usage of your phone? Where is your attention going? That baseline, first of all, requires the person to be humble enough to look at what's out there. And that immediately that brings awareness to, oh, this is what I want to drop, or this is what I want to put my attention to increase. And we're talking about habits. What are the habits that I need to stop? What are the habits that I need to incorporate?
Right.
So first element, baselining. Basically, let's call it Know Thyself 2.0.
Right. So it's just like being aware of your breath. You're just trying to put awareness to these different areas in the framework. And by bringing awareness to it, you're going to start to improve because of the awareness.
Yeah, because of the awareness. I have had many people that I ask them, okay, show me your phone screen time. Man, they are like, don't JJ, don't do this, don't do this, JJ, don't do this. And I say, okay, don't show it to me, just look at it yourself. And once they look at it, it's like, damn, right? And they be like, oh, okay, I need to change this thing. That awareness sometimes it requires a humbling state, but that's the beginning of everything.
Yeah, that's where there's obviously good and bad things about wearables, sleep tracking, or your fitness tracking, or even your data usage, phone usage of your when you're on the phone. There's just I think one of the most powerful pieces of that puzzle is just the awareness it brings to your change, because it doesn't actually impact you have to change, you have to do the change work yourself, but it's just bringing the awareness to that area that you're looking at. So that when you're working with these individuals, what is what happens after that awareness comes into play? What do you do next?
Then you know what is next step. Then you know that, okay, if I have this weight, I want to reduce weight, or I want to increase lean muscle. Okay, then you can strategize. Then you know what's the goal, and then we strategize. What's the point there? Of if I have someone who says, I feel like this during the meetings with investors or with board members, and I feel triggered. Okay, we strategize the opposite. How would you like to feel in those meetings? I would like to feel to do this way. Okay, then playing with the nervous system, doing dojos where we get ourselves into this situation and get them triggered, and then changing through breathing patterns. Previously, And this is what I called pre-game rituals. When you start applying breathing techniques to down-regulate or to up-regulate, depending on what you need, prior to the encounter with the stressor, you can do that. Or when you are in the midst of the stressor, to have something that reminds you to become aware again, right? So that's when we start becoming creative on different aspects. And like I mentioned, every person is going to be different. But once we have the idea of what's the next level, we strategize based on that.
That's fantastic, because you can't really, especially when you're in the middle of it. It's like waking up in the middle of the night, or even when you're trying to go to bed at night. You can't logic your way through this.
Yeah, no, logic doesn't work.
No, you have to really utilize your nervous system. Mm-hmm. And then so I guess it takes back to the beginning of the question: why breath work as your main component? Because it underlines.
It's because, think about this: how much time do we invest, let's say, moving during the day? If you're semi-active, it would be like 6-7 hours. How much time do we invest eating? Right. Here in the US, a couple of hours. Right? Europeans do it longer. Right? How much time do you spend relating to other people, connecting? Depending on if you're an extrovert and introvert, there are a few hours to none sometimes. But how much time do you spend breathing? 24, even when you are not aware. So for me, breathing optimally is the key, is the fundamental, so that everything on top of that can get improved.
That's wonderful, and it sounds like a fantastic place for us to wrap up. JJ, if someone wants to reach out to you, how would they get in touch with you?
They can find me at JJ Ruescas, that is Ruescas. I know it's difficult to pronounce even in Spanish, so we're going to put it in the notes.
Yeah, for sure.
And jjruescas.com in all the social media, all the website, podcast, and everything. So
awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, JJ.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah.
Let's breathe another day again.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and be well. Welcome to the newest episode of Stamina Lab, hosted by me, Glen Lubbert. If you're ready to upgrade your performance, achieve mental clarity, and improve your well-being, well, then you're in the right place. You'll hear the stories of professionals who have taken on big challenges while managing their energy and longevity through the ups and downs of pursuing their goals. Enjoy this episode, then head to the show notes to learn more so you can take the next steps to build the habits and systems you need to achieve your dreams.